So I've got to address a tool controversy, and it specifically has to do with the oscillating multi-tool. I've done multiple videos on the multi-tool, and it's a crowd favorite, but there's an argument surrounding multi-tool usage. Is it better to cut straight on with this tool, or with the blade mounted sideways? I've always been a straight on cutter and more or less against sideways cutting, but I thought it was finally time to challenge my own assumptions. So I did some tests for speed, efficiency, and feel, and I'll admit that I discovered some things I never knew about this tool before. And today I'm sharing those discoveries with you on The Honest Carpenter Show. By the way, be sure to check us out at thehonestcarpenter.com, where you can find my brand new online course, Power Tools Explained. It's an 18-video deep dive where I take you step by step through the 20 most important power tools for carpenters and DIYers. I teach you everything you need to know about how to use these essential tools safely, and it's the best jumpstart for carpentry newcomers. So check it out today at thehonestcarpenter.com. Okay, so the debate around multi-tools often comes down to blade orientation. How do you situate the blade on the adapter? I'd say the majority of users rely on straight blade attachment, that is, with the blade sitting in line with the body of the tool, pointing straight out the front. But there's a very vocal contingent out there that says, turn the blade 90 degrees. They're avid side-mounted blade users, and they insist that this improves feel and performance. But is that true or not? Should you stick to old-fashioned straight line cutting, or should you make the turn to 90 degrees? And furthermore, what's to gain from either position? That's the mystery that I finally wanted to solve. But I'll start by saying that rotating the blade is a totally valid option on nearly every multi-tool model. Modern versions of this tool feature a number of attachment styles, plus countless universal blades that they can utilize. And most of these models have pin-style detents, and the blades have symmetrical pass-through holes. So you can really position the blade at any orientation you like, clear around 360 degrees. And the reason this is even possible has to do with the tool's range of motion. A lot of users assume that the multi-tool slides the blade from side to side on the adapter, essentially a back and forth sweeping motion. I thought that for a long time because that's just what it looks like it's doing. My Dewalt Cordless has a pressure-sensitive trigger, so I can really dial down the oscillating speed with light pressure. And when I activate it slowly, just look, the blade seems to slide from side to side in a straight sweep. But that's basically an optical illusion, because if that was actually the case, then you wouldn't be able to turn the blade and still use it, because the motion would be all wrong. Sure, when you use the tool straight on, it would cut like it's supposed to, but the moment you rotated it, the blade would no longer be sweeping, it would be pecking. If the tool had this constrained, one-dimensional motion, it would tap the blade down over and over again, sort of like an axe chopping wood. And these blades are definitely not meant to cut that way. So it becomes obvious that something else is actually happening here with the tool's motion. And to see it, you have to turn the tool around and look at the front face, or the adapter itself. When I just activate it, it's still hard to tell what it's doing. But I can accentuate the motion by making horizontal marks on the adapter. Now, when I run it at very low speeds, you can see that it's not sliding from side to side, it's wobbling ever so slightly. The adapter semi-rotates one way, then semi-rotates back the other way. So it's not actually sweeping the blade side to side, it's rotating it slightly through an arc. And this is also way more effective than a side-to-side motion because it means that the teeth rotate out of the cut ever so slightly, which is even better for clearing waste material. This is why you can rotate the blade and the tool still works. It's like how you shift your hands all around a steering wheel. You can grip it at any point and still turn it. So with the multi-tool, we can cut straight up, we can cut sideways, we can flip to the other side, we can do 3/4 angles, and we can even rotate the blade all the way downwards. Not that you would want to do that for cutting, especially because it puts your fingers at risk, but it is possible. But once again, this begs the question, which orientation is more effective for cutting? Is one way or another better for actually using the tool? To test it, I've been flipping the blade around lately and trying multiple cutting angles on different surfaces. Wood, metal, various types of PVC and plastic. And as a result, I've realized some things that have made me completely re-examine this tool. For instance, I started by making square cuts on this piece of angled aluminum. I'll say right away that I managed to get pretty clean cuts on the piece both ways, but I personally noticed that the straight blade method was much more stable. It just felt better cutting like this. And notably, the cut went much faster. I got through the piece in about half the time with less tool chatter and vibration. So I asked myself, why would this be? And two things quickly occurred to me. One, it was just easier to see and control my alignment in this straight line position. When I had the tool turned sideways, I kept swinging it slightly without really noticing it. My hands and arms just did that on their own. But with vertical cutting, I could literally look straight down my blade orientation and stick to it. And two, probably even more important, I was using the tool's weight to my advantage. With this straight down cutting, the motor and battery weight were pinning the tool down. They helped create driving force and stability. Conversely, when I held the tool to the side, I was carrying that weight and it was working against me. I had to create the driving force by pressing down on the tool. As a result, it was not nearly as secure and more prone to chatter. Now, that's how that situation worked out. But we're not always cutting top down like this. We do a lot of horizontal cutting as well. So I switched to plywood to test this. And here's where I found a really interesting thing that I never noticed before. Right off the bat, I had a much harder time cutting with the blade sideways. The tool just didn't seem to want to obey me, and I ended up producing a ragged cut with lots of chatter. Granted, I'm not that experienced cutting like this, and that's because it just doesn't feel natural to me. Again, you're having to produce sideways pressure with your front hand to initiate the cut, and that just doesn't seem as effective. But I kept experimenting with the blade that way, and then something funny happened. I noticed that my cutting drastically improved when I went to the other end and pulled the cut towards me. I angled it back slightly and drew the cut in my direction. My stability doubled when I cut on the draw rather than on the push. Yes, this cut was already screwed up, but still, my sense of control was much greater in this direction. I decided to test this with the straight cut too. I pushed the cut at first, like I usually do, and found that even though it felt better than sideways cutting, it still needed improvement. So I switched over to cutting on the pull, and my stability right away was like 300% better. I just kept the teeth slightly pointed back towards me and followed my line, and it was one of the cleanest cutting sensations I've had with the multi-tool. I did multiple tests like this and was amazed that I'd never noticed it before. Whether I was sideways cutting or straight line cutting, drawing the tool towards me improved my control immensely. I kind of realized that this is because it stabilizes the tool more. When you cut on the push, you tend to use your thumb to create pressure. That handhold is just weaker. But when you cut on the draw, the tool is cradled more with your fingers. This means you have multiple points of control and better grip pressure. The thumb is just more passive here. And it's also just easier for you to pull objects towards you with control rather than push them away. It's just a more natural motion for our bodies. Overall, though, even after the experiments, I still fully believe that straight line cutting is just the way to go. It balances the tool better and makes alignment much easier because you can read the direction of the tool body itself. That's something you just don't get with sideways cutting. But no matter what, cutting on the draw was always better across the board, and it's something I'll probably always do from now on, especially to start cuts. It just goes to show that no matter how many times you've done something, it's always good to experiment with alternatives. In the end, you'll just continue to discover new things. And I will say that angled blade cutting totally has its applications. Cutting through drywall, for instance, is much easier with at least a partial angle. It opens the teeth to the material. And if you're in a tight spot, like a cabinet, turning the blade can totally give you a better cut approach and maybe even a better lineup for your view. So use it as you will. But I'll probably still rely on straight line cutting 95% of the time in the future. That's just me though. Let me know what your preference is down in the comments. Also, I'll link some great multi-tools and attachments below. Feel free to check those out in the description. And check out Power Tools Explained at thehonestcarpenter.com. You can get a whole wealth of power tool information you need in one place. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll consider subscribing. I'm Ethan James with thehonestcarpenter.com. I'll see you next time.